This is the story of the world on the brink of economic disaster. It's hurricane season in America. On Monday the 15th, Texas took stock of the damage caused by the latest, Hurricane Ike. These storms are devastating, but not unusual. What was unexpected was the scale of economic disaster that was coming. That same day, Lehman Brothers Bank went bust. It was the start of a month when the world came within hours of catastrophe. The amount banks charged each other for short-term loans doubled overnight. That meant they couldn't afford to borrow money. Banks lost confidence in banks.
The essence of a bank is confidence. If people don't have complete confidence in a bank, the bank will not be able to borrow the funds which it needs to lend to others in business or to families. So that confidence was at threat.
It all happened incredibly fast. By Wednesday, only 3 days into the crisis, credit for any institution, large or small, was unavailable.
Not just banks and commercial banks, we were getting calls from large American businesses, blue chip businesses, saying they couldn't fund themselves. They couldn't make their payroll. They couldn't fund their inventory. These are some of the best American companies that have very little to do with financial markets, saying they can't access the basic funding they need to pay their employees.
Proper authorities, within 48 hours, the banking system would collapse. And then he turned to Chairman Bernanke, and Chairman Bernanke said that if Secretary Paulson didn't get proper authorities within the next 48 hours, the banking system would collapse.
The collapse of Lehman shattered the illusion that we can ignore history.
What happened to the bankers? Yes, they knew that they were involved in an underpricing of risk, and at some point that correction would be made. I fear that too many of them thought they would be able to spot the actual trigger point of the crisis in time to get out.
They were making so much money, it was difficult for them to stop.
This is a formula for an explosion, a formula for a gigantic bubble that would almost inevitably burst. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist. You did not have to have a fancy financial degree to know that the day of reckoning was coming.
The thing for the United States was that we came into this crisis without an adequate set of tools to withstand, protect the economy from the acute stress you saw in the financial system.
Although subprime was the final card that brought the shaky edifice down, the origins of the crisis lay in the age of risk.
The roots of this crisis are global and geopolitical. The actual trigger is securitized American subprime mortgages, which became toxic and essentially proliferated around the world. However, if it were not that trigger, in other words, it were not the subprime, something else would have triggered it.
It is not easy for anybody, whether it's commentators in the media, television, regulators, politicians, to criticize success. And I think one of the challenges for the future is to put in place a framework for the regulation of banks, which ensures that it is possible to challenge what they are doing, even though it appears to be successful at the time.
And the man whose ideas dominated the world's economy for 2 decades has a warning about the future.
Crisis will happen again, but it will be different. It's human nature. Unless somebody can find a way to change human nature, we will have more crises. None of them will look like this because no two crises have anything in common except human nature.